Hi, I'm Duncan Smith.
And I'm Kate.
And we're right here in Toronto enjoying a phenomenal Catch the Fire conference. I think number 19, is it?
Yeah, I believe so.
Oh, it's
Amazing.
just absolutely incredible. And the Holy Spirit is just moving so powerfully and so thick. And I tell you what, Kate, for you and I, it's the best thing. It's coming home to Toronto. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it really is. It's just so great to be back and just be together with the team and just get a sense of where God's taking us this year, because there's just amazing and exciting things ahead.
Yeah, something's really up right now. I mean, God is really, really moving, and it's exciting coming back to Toronto, which for us, of course, is the place where we got so revolutionized 12 years ago. And, you know, having had 8 years here as executive directors, we just, you know, there's such a deep attachment to our family here, and, you know, it just is such a great reminder because we're down in Raleigh now. We've been there for 4 years, haven't we, darling?
Yeah. But you know, it's just coming along so nicely. We're just so amazed at what God has done, and it's just like speeding things up. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed that things are just speeding up, and
Seriously,
God really is behind us. He's just backing us in everything that we're doing.
We went down to Raleigh 4 years ago to plant the first Catch the Fire church outside of Toronto, and I guess, you know, deep down inside when you plant a church, the worst thing about it is that you can't help thinking, have we wound the clock back now 20 years, because we've got to wait 20 years for things to get as kind of, you know, up to speed, because it takes that long for a church to get going and buildings to get bought and all of that. And, you know, Kate, Kate felt right from the get-go, darling, I think that God's going to accelerate what he's doing among us. And boy, has he ever accelerated it, hasn't he?
Yeah, and I said, Lord, I will go to Raleigh as long as it doesn't take as long for us to get to where we want to be in your kingdom and you know, involved in your purposes for Raleigh and still for the nations of the world. And God's really answered that prayer, because he's backing us up in these days when we say yes to him. And, you know, we just want to encourage you in that, you know, when we say yes to God, all of heaven's resources are there for us. And
absolutely.
We just wanted to share with you some amazing news about God's provision for us in Raleigh, which again was just an endorsement and a kiss from him with his love.
It was incredible.
Why don't you tell them the story?
Well, it was absolutely amazing. You know, when you plant a church, one of the biggest problems is where do you meet, you know, and because everything's starting from scratch, you don't have any money kind of thing, and you very quickly learn that, you know, you can live out of God's bank account or your bank account, and when your bank account has nothing in it, it really helps to start living out of his bank account. And so, you know, our first year and a half, we just, you know, rented a place on Sundays only, and we had an office that we rented, and it just was such a small beginning, you know. But in Zechariah 4 verse 10, God says through Zechariah to the Israelites, the ancient Israelites, do not despise the day of small beginnings. And you know, that's something that we've really learned, is that God always starts with something small. He often starts with just a seed. I mean, a mighty oak tree that's been there for 500 years was once just a little tiny acorn. And so, you know, that first year and a half was a rough time in lots of ways. You know, the place that we rented was not what we were hoping for. In fact, we broke all of the church planting rules. And yet God still blessed us. And then we had the opportunity to rent a place 24/7. And of course, like all of God's dreams, it was way beyond what we could do in the natural. And we had to learn to put our little hands into his big hand. And when our landlords came up to us after 2 years of us being in that building and said, we have to sell the building. We want to sell it. We've got 3 buyers. You've got 2 weeks to make your mind up. And then after that 2 weeks, if you sign the purchase agreement, you must come up with the full purchase price of $1.4 million in 3 months. Well, we went into a tailspin, didn't we, honey? And we went to 8 banks. 7 of them said flat out no, and they wouldn't lend us anything. And the deposit, if they did lend us 70%, the deposit was somewhere in the region of $300,000 or $400,000. And even that seemed like a gigantic mountain because we had the princely sum of $15,000 in our building fund.
Yeah.
So Kate, come on, you tell a little
Yeah.
bit about what happened because it
Yeah.
was just amazing.
So, you know, despite all your best efforts, you think, well, what have we got? We've only got God really to trust in. And it was at a time when, you know, we were busy traveling. Duncan was just about to go back to Niger to go and minister to the Fulani unreached people group who were literally running out of food and resources to buy food. And so at this time when really we should have gone into a frenzy and writing to everyone, fundraising, Duncan gets called by the Lord, go and take care of the poor in Niger. And you just knew.
2-week trip.
Well, I cannot do anything else. This is in your hands, Father. The building, what we need is in your hands.
Yeah, and 5 days after I got back from Africa, from Niger, my brother calls me and he says, Duncan, I've got something, I've got to show it to you. And I could tell from the excitement in his voice something was up. Well, he comes over to our house.
And he's our accountant.
Yes,
so,
he's
you
our
know,
finance.
he's the one that's going to get more stressed about finances.
Exactly.
Particularly. And he'd also called me and said, I've got something to tell you. And he told me the news and I'm like, I'm just in the store right now. I'm just sitting down on the floor because I've come over all faint. And so then Duncan, we couldn't get hold of Duncan. He was in a meeting somewhere. He didn't have his phone with him. It was like, when is he going to? So then finally
Murray gets a hold of me and he walks into my kitchen and he hands me an envelope addressed to me, Duncan Smith, Catch the Fire Ministries, 9225 Leesville Road, Raleigh. And I'm like, Murray, this letter's open. How come a letter addressed to me is open? And he looks at me sheepishly and I'm like, it's a good job you're my brother. Anyway, I pulled the letter out. He said, look, just have a look. So I pull out this letter and it's from the Fidelity Charitable Giving Fund. And it says, Dear colleague, I mean, who writes dear colleague? Dear colleague. Oh, I felt so blessed. I'm their colleague, some multi-millionaire somewhere. Anyway, said, Dear colleague, please find enclosed a check in the amount of $1,200,000 from one of our donors who wishes to remain anonymous, but wants you to know that you can use the money as you see fit. Oh my gosh. And there, you know, please tear off the check at the perforated line. I've never been so happy to tear anything at a perforated line in all my life. There it is. And I actually fell on the floor, just like Kate did.
Yeah.
I did it in my living room. She did it in the
but you get
store.
excitable. You roll on the floor. And
I do.
Yeah.
It's true.
So it was one of those moments in God where we were just so, it was like all of heaven had kissed us.
Yeah. It was
we could
amazing.
do nothing but just, whew,
and
bask in that.
God had reminded us that 2 years earlier, he had told us when we first went in the building, I'm going to do something with regards to your building that in the day that I do it is going to be so incredible, you're going to laugh for 2 years every time you think about what I did.
Yeah.
We've not stopped laughing every time.
Just like the joy and the
Yeah.
pleasure of God and his goodness to us has just been amazing.
It's been incredible.
Well, I mean, we thought that was amazing.
Yeah, we thought that was amazing.
really wasn't the end of the story, which was just like the cherry on the icing on the cake.
Yeah, because we suddenly now the church, our local church in Raleigh, which, you know, is probably about, in total people that come, about 400 people now. The folks gave, we sort of realized we better give them an opportunity to give because otherwise we're going to have the whole building bought and none of us have had a chance to give, you know. So we took up a special offering and that was a very exciting Sunday and of course everybody went nuts.
Giving and the joy of the Lord was released in the place. So we were just so, just a sense of
the joy,
the pleasure and the joy of heaven.
Oh,
and we were celebrating together. I mean, it was just incredible. Just
it really
touching
was.
that joy of heaven.
And when we did this whole heave offering where we got a big sheet and we put it all out just like God told the Israelites and ancient Israelites in the Old Testament, put out a big sheet on the floor. We got the whole church to gather around the sheet.
And all the kids were holding the sheet.
All the kids came and held the sheet, and everybody holding it. There wasn't a space on the sheet. And we held this great big sheet, and we put all the money, including the representationally a check for the million
and all the prayer requests.
And all prayer requests and everything anybody was wanting breakthrough for.
Yeah.
Healings, you name it. We put them all on this sheet, and then we just went 1, 2, 3, and we threw up this thing, and it rained down money.
It just went everywhere, all these dollar bills.
It just was like an explosion. And then we all just spontaneously, the band were all ready, we just spontaneously went into dancing.
Yeah.
And we danced on top of money, because money's under our feet.
Yeah.
Shikabanga.
Yeah.
We don't serve money, money serves us. And money was under our feet. And we danced spontaneously as a church on top of what turned out to be $75,000, which was pretty amazing for a new church, a 3-year-old church. Well, we went to bed that night. Are you ready for this? $20,000 short of being able to buy our building and $1.4 million cash. Cash. Did I mention the word cash? I meant cash. Yeah, so it was kind of cool. And, I forgot to say that 7 banks said no. 1 bank said maybe, and they had said no as well, just before I went to Tunisia. So really, God was our only hope. When we went to bed that night, 20,000 short, we looked at each other, didn't we? Oh, we just laughed. We're like, 20,000.
What's that? Oh, that's nothing.
Although deep down inside, there was a part of me that was like, man, that 20,000 is irritating.
It needs to be finished.
It needs to be finished. The next morning, we were sitting down having coffee and at a cafeteria, and my brother phones me again and says, he sends me a text saying, Duncan, you're not going to believe it, but another envelope's arrived addressed to you from the Fidelity Charitable Giving Fund. So, I'd like you to think that I was full of faith in that moment and thought, oh, another check. But I didn't. I thought, oh, it's just probably a receipt or something, So, Murray, just go ahead and open it. So he opened it. Next thing I knew, the phone went again, and it was Murray. Duncan, it's another check. Dear colleague, please accept a check in the amount of $100,000 from one of our donors who wishes to remain anonymous, but you may use the money as you see fit.
So
we bought the building cash 6 weeks early because God is so much bigger than we could ever imagine.
Yeah. So now... we bought the building. It belongs to Catch the Fire in Raleigh. We own the land. We're part of the land now.
We're millionaires.
And, we're millionaires because actually...
In the kingdom.
In the kingdom of heaven, we realise, well, that's the beginning.
That's just the beginning.
We've got to start dreaming again.
Yeah.
At that point, we were only looking at the building, but God was like saying, well, what else do you want to do in this city? Yeah,
honey, you're just reminding me, about a few weeks later, I'm lying in bed. I was about to drift off to sleep, and all of a sudden, the Holy Spirit spoke to me. He said, Duncan, that was really, really good fun partnering with you and Kate and the team for 1.4 million. But now that's done, what would you like to partner with me for next? I'm like, oh yeah, there's next. That's right. Oh my gosh. I'd like 22 million, please, Lord. And he said to me, and what would you do with 22 million? And I'm like, you got a point there. Just hold on. I'll think of something.
Just get my list.
And I just began to start dreaming right there as I lay there drifting off to sleep. Well, I know what we're going to do. We're going to open a safe house for women that have been abused in Raleigh. We're going to open a safe house for kids that have been abused. We're going to open a center for drug rehabilitation for people. There's a lot of drug problems the sex trade is huge in Raleigh. The drug problem's huge in Raleigh. We thought it was just a nice city when we went there, but there's just gigantic problems there.
We want to break the back of poverty.
We want to break the back of poverty.
Buy up some of the homes and get rid of the slumlords. We began to realise, well, actually, 22 million.
I think 22 million is really enough.
If we're going to staff all these places.
We need 100 million.
And we want to buy a few warehouses to convert to some cool meeting places and gathering places for these people.
So we said to Jesus, we'd like you to give us $100 million in the next little while, next medium while. And so that's what we're expecting
We're
for.
believing God just to transform our community and just to be a community that becomes the message of love and hope. And you know, our world really needs Jesus, and we need heaven.
Yeah, we do. We need heaven to invade.
We're tired of the old way, and you know, we've just got an invitation now. So our church are just excited about what God wants to do, and we just have this sense that He wants to pour out His Spirit in such a way and change the status quo, change the bring a new normal to the
bring
region.
a new normal. That's
so
it.
We're just wanting to partner and agree with heaven.
I think, you know, two things are happening right now. First of all, the local church in Raleigh is just exploding. This next season, in 3 days' time, we're going to be on Sunday. We're going to be going to 2 services,
celebrating our 4th birthday.
Celebrating our 4th birthday.
Yeah.
And we're bursting at the seams in our building already, and we're going to have to go to 2 services. But we're believing God that our church in Raleigh will be a church in the next 10 years of 10,000 people. That's our goal. That's what we're believing God for. And it's actually His goal that He put in us. It was His dream. When we went from Toronto and we left everything here and we went to nothing in Raleigh, God told us the church is going to be 10,000, and also I want you to plant 1,000 churches. Well, at that time, and He had said that to us, Kate, many years ago, many years, 2 decades ago almost. At least a decade and a half ago, He said, I want you to plant 1,000 churches in your lifetime. That's the goal. We thought 4 years ago, that's an impossible dream. But now that God's accelerated this whole thing so fast, and within 3 years we've already bought our building, 3.5 years, we've realized, you know what, God's serious about the things that He says to us that are impossible. And I just want to join you in His faith in you, in His faith in His ability to fulfill the dreams that He has, that He's put in your life to come to pass, things that are impossible. Because let me say, if it is possible, it's likely to be your dream. If it's impossible, it's definitely His dream, because He's the God of the impossible. So don't be surprised if your dreams are impossible. It's God's dreams that He's put in you. But I want to join you in His faith in you and your faith in Him, that God will do immeasurably more than you could ever even imagine or ask or even think. Because that's the nature of our God. Sheka Bungo, He's got such big dreams. And let's face it, a church of 10,000 in Raleigh, that's nothing when there's 1.5 million in the whole area. 1,000 churches in this world, that's nothing when you consider that there's nearly 7 billion people. So, you know, I want to encourage you, all of you that are watching, dare to believe in the bigness of God, to be able to do immeasurably more than you could ever ask or imagine. That's what I'm believing God for with you. Go for it.
Absolutely. Just go for it and just keep receiving the fire of God's love, because we're in a season where we have a choice. Are we going to keep burning for Him, or are we just going to go cold? But I just know it's a time when there's hungry and thirsty hearts just after Him and after His glory. So may He just come and visit you in the glory and in His fullness. Bless you guys.